confines leaders to poor choices every day, it can actually impair your judgment. And study shows that judges give their best shot in the morning. It's a story drawn from the Entrepreneur. And you can find also 5 ways to overcome decision fatigue. Well fleshed out for you there on page 27 of today's Business Daily. Right, we talk business this morning, and of course also we want to train our focus on the delivery industry. We're asking, is the post office a vital part of the economy or a money-losing dinosaur that delivers junk mail? Pundits argue that there is a role for hard mail delivery through the Postal Services infrastructure, and especially for those with low incomes behind the digital divide. Really? With virtually every pocket and handbag of Kenyans holding a mobile phone, is that plausible a reason enough? Well, here's a post giver. Is a corporation a victim of a paradigm shift that has adversely affected other corporations that failed to read the writings on the wall and was sidelined by the competition because of the stiff neck that was not very supple to flow with the current of change? Right? That is a question that we'll pose, of course, to the Postmaster General of the Postal Services of Kenya to tell us more about the corporation and what he has for this corporation. Do we need it in the country? How vital is it in the country? Is the digital age sidelining snail mail services? That is what he's going to tell us this morning. A very good morning to Daktari.
Yes, good morning.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
Right. It's good to see you this morning. It's been a long while since I sent any snail mail. Yeah? And maybe I'll ask you, do you have your postal address that I can send my send mail to?
Well, yes, of course. I have a box number, and I get mail.
You do get mail?
Yes, I'll be waiting for yours too.
Right, I'll get you details after the show.
Yes.
Okay, let's just get to talk about the postal services in Kenya and the delivery industry at large. And of course, we are given to understand that the postal services is under threat worldwide, not only in Kenya, because of the advent of the digital age, right? And I'm wondering, how has this adversely affected your corporation?
Okay, first I want to correct the impression that, that the post office in the world is under threat. I want to segment that and say that physical mail is under threat. The physical mail. And it's not only about the post office. Physical mail has many operators, not only the post office. So I think that, yes, on that sphere, there is threat. But again, innovations within the post offices in the world have shown that that can be reversed by embracing technology. Right.
But if we take a look also, when we talk worldwide, we take a look of what actually is happening, especially with the U.S. Royal Mail, right? And the Senate has also passed a bipartisan comprehensive bill. They're calling it the 21st Century Postal Services Act to prevent this historic, default by right-sizing and modernization and reforming the postal services. You don't really agree with that?
I don't agree. First, for example, the U.S. Postal Services and the Royal Mail of Britain would probably, in my view, the last examples of good postal organizations that I would refer to. Because, for example, the U.S. Post is fully government funded.
Yes.
100%. In fact, up to recently, they were the best earning civil servants in the UN, in the U.S. I think they have been spoon-fed for such a long time that we cannot use them as a good example. On the contrary, our market was liberalized quite a while ago, and we have seen a number of African posts getting completely threatened, others reinventing themselves. And so it really depends on how you approach these things, just like any business. I think for us, we have taken it very positively. It has helped us to rearrange how we do our business. And the customer has therefore begun seeing the fruits of those rearrangements. It has happened in other parts of the world, which I would possibly quote. For instance, if you go to Germany, the German Post is one of the best performing organizations in the world. You go to Italy, it's the same. You go to the Netherlands, it's the same. Their models are different, but they have succeeded without government subvention.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, let's generally look at the postal service in Kenya, looking at your mandate and your obligation according to the Act from the Constitution. Tell us more about the postal service.
I want to begin by saying that for a long time, the post in Kenya has had a run without competition until in the early 90s that we began seeing competition coming.
Yes.
And before then, the postal services run by the then Kenya Post and Telecommunication, and before it, the East African Post and Telecommunication, was the sole provider of physical mail services as well as parcel services. And so that breeds complacency. You definitely would have heard, I'm sure you are still very young, would have heard that, you know, everybody was not very happy with the way the corporation then was running mail services, telephone services, all those things, because they were just alone. But when competition came, a lot of things have changed. And we have other voices speaking now, saying we want level playing ground. That has happened. We have now the Kenya Information and Communications Act, which has defined that level playing ground very clearly. And the only thing that has been remaining for Postal Corporation of Kenya was universal service provision. That is where it is recognized world over that there is the basic letter, which is the communication that everybody minimally should have. And so Kenya is signatory to that UN charter that demands that at every part of Kenya there must be that level of communication. And so Postal Corporation of Kenya has had this particular function. It still has the function under the Act, but some things have changed. How was this to be financed? That's, I think, where people completely misunderstand. There is a reserved segment of that mail that is 350 grams and below.
Yes.
And every country that has signed that charter is to determine what is universal service in terms of the basic letter.
All right.
Kenya has defined that, 350 grams and below. That will still remain. But something has changed, the funding model.
The funding model.
The funding model. How do you fund that universal service? Previously, competitors were required to charge 5 times the basic letter rate. In Kenya, the basic letter rate is 30 shillings.
Yes.
Now, 35, because you add VAT, which came into effect in September. So the others must charge 5 times that. The reason was to cushion the one who the government has decided to use for delivery of the universal service, and that's Postal Corporation of Kenya, to try and find funding from that reserved segment. Unfortunately, from day one, it didn't work. So the Postal Corporation of Kenya has been funding universal service from other competitive segments of its business.
But given that advantage that, yes, the law provides, you know, that the other couriers which are private should be charging 5 times more, right? How were you able also to, you know, argument on that, you know, for your own advantage?
First of all, we didn't seem to take advantage of that. And one of the reasons was that the rate that was being used 5 times was already very low. And when the law came into effect, it actually found the few competitors who were there already charging that way. So they never lost any of their customers to the advantage of the post office. So those customers remained with them because they were already using them. But But number two, the post office, I must confess, did not quickly look at ways to take advantage of the fact that they have that reservation. And so we remained not providing the best of services. We were losing letters. We were losing letters to, you know, unscrupulous employees who would probably violate these letters. We would lose letters, they're not delivered, they are misdirected. And some of these things were basically complacency on the part of the post office and probably mainly, I would say, the management that didn't seem to take seriously the fact that they have a window here which they would use and internalize that as a means of financing universal service.
Right.
So we lost it. We never got it even one day.
How unfortunate. But tell me, Dr. then, you say the competition came in the 1990s, but there was a report that was released, if we can hack back to 1976, right, some 37 years back. And they were saying there is going to be an advent of the electronic media that is going to threaten the volume of, you know, hard mail, the snail mail. And that is a long, lengthy time. Wasn't the corporation wise enough, or maybe had the foresight to see, yes, there's going to be a big change that is going to adversely affect our industry? And how can we up the ante in terms of fighting back the competition?
Maybe I'll take you back to the same period.
Yes.
I wasn't there then, but I know the history is that Postal Services were a department within the then East African Post and Telecommunication, and then later Kenya Post and Telecommunication Corporation.
Yes.
As you know, telecommunications was minting money. And Postal Services, whatever they would bring in, was so little, and it didn't even seem to make any business sense to the managers then of that corporation.
Yeah.
In fact, I would dare say Postal Services were completely neglected. And what I said earlier is actually attributed to that attitude. And we were completely neglected in terms of development. For instance, everybody knew that technology has come and we needed to take full advantage of technology because some postal organizations in the world began doing that. They began taking advantage of technology. For instance, hybrid mail began in many countries much, much earlier. In fact, the dates you are mentioning.
Right, the email certification as well.
Yes, email certification, which we are going to now. In Kenya, we don't have that. And even as we go to it, we are actually partnering with those who already are in it to be able to do it. But it doesn't matter what method you use to deliver that.
Yes.
But what is important is that you must always be on the ground in terms of the market to know what your customers need and adapt to it as quickly as possible. That's what we were missing because we were a neglected department of the larger giant Kenya Post and Telecommunication Corporation. Then there was effort much later from international circles, that's the Universal Postal Union, to liberate postal services from the yoke of telecommunication, which seemed to be the bigger brother, although they grew faster because they were born out of postal.
Yeah.
But, you know, in 1993 is when we began seeing effort, in Africa especially, where the separation of telecom and posts began. And that's when we began breathing our own air.
But don't you think maybe that was the undoing now of the postal services? Because I think uncoupling the postal services from the telecommunication services itself, that was a tripping wire for this particular industry. And I'm surprised to note that it was not really an initiative that was coming from the government. It was actually from an idea from the union services, as you mentioned.
Yeah, the Universal Postal Union.
Universal Postal
Union.
Union.
Yes. UPU.
UPU, that actually came up with that idea.
Right.
So the uncoupling of the postal services from the telecommunication industry, do you think this was a tripping wire for the industry?
Not. I actually said it. Postal Services were liberated from the yoke of being put together with telecommunications.
So you don't think it was a good idea for it to be running
There was the worst situation
together, I should say.
And in fact, there are some countries still
Yes.
in that state. If you know how backward the postal services are, it would be a pity if you saw some of them right now, because they exist still. But I want to say this, that the fact that we were separated began making managers in the postal sector think and begin working on their survival. I'll tell you that in 1999, because I found myself in that situation where I was a marketing manager, and we were asked to choose, where do you want to go? You want to go to telecoms, you want to go to postal, or do you want to join the regulator? We didn't know what the regulator was all about, because that was the first time a regulator was coming. So probably, again, they are taking a few people. But telecoms was the one that was minting money. And I said, I'm not going there. The reason I didn't want to go there was I had happened to be involved in separation of the accounts internally, just before the split. And I saw the kind of expenditure on the telecom side vis-a-vis their revenues. And I saw the opportunity in the postal side that would actually make us stretch a bit to think. And that's why I chose to take the postal side. I was in marketing, I could go either way. There were people who couldn't choose because they are telecom engineers, so they must go to telecom. They are postal controllers, so they must go to postal. I chose to go to postal because I knew there was opportunity to stretch ourselves and improve.
All right, let's talk about now the innovation journey at Postal and how it's been. Of course, you've launched various products since actually the advent of technology. We can talk about the e-payment solution that you came up with, I think that was last year, right? The e-payment solution. Kindly update us, tell us more about the e-payment solution. Also, I think there's an initiative you came up with the Kenya Commercial Bank on agency banking. You can tell us more about these products that maybe the public that is not really aware of, or maybe you've not been really coming out strongly to market them, so that they may be aware of the e-payment solution.
Yeah, let me begin by way of introduction. That postal services world over is about three things. Postal services, that is letter mail, and that is represented, the letter represents communication.
Yes.
So one area we operate in is communication. The next is distribution.
Yes.
Distribution, you know, we do parcels, we do courier, we also deliver the mail. The third is financial services, and this specifically is called Postal Financial Services.
Yes.
What has emerged is that where postal financial services are advanced, then the postal entity is viable. Actually, good and developed financial services is equal to a good postal organization. Why? The letter is a social kind of a function. And it will depend on how the government has arranged itself to deliver that mail. But where there's no funding, like the case of our postal services, financial services have always come in to help make the network, which is usually very large, viable. And so that's why we have been, you know, we've said the first thing to touch is financial services. If we have to reinvent the postal organization in Kenya. And so we invested in a $1 million solution, financial solution, which was mainly focused on serving agency services. Because of our network, we are an agent of very many corporates. And so that has been traditionally the case anyway, even in other postal organizations. So we developed this, and we were able to launch it as a platform for others to use, taking advantage of our wide network. So the banks were the first to be attracted to it. utility companies were the next. And so we found that we must have a solution that switches financial transactions.
All right. But given the robust network that the Postal Services has in this country, and of course with the advent of the financial services through mobile phone, don't you think then Posta should have been, you know, the go-to guy to actually try and deliver this financial platform to the machinanis, because your network is robust even where we don't have maybe the cabling of the infrastructure from the telecommunication center, isn't it?
I'm glad you have recognized that. That's exactly the reason why we are getting to where we are going. We are the place where everyone is coming to knock. They have begun to knock, and we are prepared to serve. The banks, you said, you talked about KCB.
Yes.
There are 5 now. It's not only KCB. There are 5 banks. And we know that all the 43, I also learned last week that there are 43, not 42 like I thought
Yes.
there were. The 43 banks that are licensed in Kenya will have to integrate with our financial switch for reasons that are simple. The government has designated our financial solution because, as you know, we are 100% owned by the government.
Yes.
And the government is moving to the digital economy. And payments is one of the major areas that the government must get to in terms of digitalization. And so the government is actually releasing regulations very, very soon on the e-payment, so that everybody who deals with government, either out payments or in payments, would definitely have to be connected with that financial solution.
All right.
And so if that has to happen, who wouldn't want? Because about 80% of goods and services are actually consumed by government. Taxes you have to pay. And all this, we are going to facilitate these transactions, because now that is the government payment, e-payment gateway. It's not that they will have to choose. It is because they must deal with the government, and that's why they will have to. There are services, for instance, now, where the banks, the mobile operators will have to query a database of government to confirm your identity before they agree for you to become their customer. Currently, it's happening for free. They are querying the government database for free. But the government will have to maintain that system. They will need the citizens themselves to ensure it's maintained, because it has to work. And so we are currently integrating with that government system for payments, just a little money to be collected, so that as you inquire, some few shillings are dropped from your pocket to be able to maintain that system. It's not a tax, it's basically a service. And so currently, as we have started the Huduma services at the post offices, we are the collector of all that revenue. We are collecting all that revenue that the citizens will be paying. It's not a lot of money, you know, a few shillings here and there, but it comes out that it is easier for the government to handle their payments like that in a unified manner. So that is the beginning point of financial services growing. But the bigger picture here is that at the end of it, we want a cashless society. That's what I think the government wants. Currently, it's about 92% is cash transactions. It's very dangerous for a growing economy. And we want to ensure that when we're moving to a cashless society, we are moving there in an affordable manner, so that you do not have to spend a lot of money to do a financial transaction. One of the mandates that we are likely to get out of that, those regulations that are coming out, is that we must be affordable to the extent that Kenyans enjoy lower financial transaction fees.
All right. Maybe because we really stopped for time, we have to wind up. But I need to know, first of all, briefly about your corporate strategic plan for I think it was a 2013, 2016. And also, I want to know, We have Dr. Enock Kinara, right, who's the Postmaster General now. We do not know his leadership style. We do not know his flair of maybe, you know, cooperating or relating with the employees of the corporation. We want to know you more deeply. Tell us about, first of all, the strategic plan that you have for Posta, taking it to the next level from where it is right now, and also your leadership style.
In a nutshell, we want to move Posta financially from the current 3.5 billion in terms of turnover to 20 billion in the next 3 years. But the 20 billion we're talking about now is cumulative of the 3 years of the strategic plan. So we are moving from 3.2, which was where the base year, we were 3.2. We have moved to 3.5, which is the first year of operation. We are moving to 6.5 and 9.5 billion annual turnover. That brings us a cumulative of 20.2 billion at the end of the plan period. How do we come there? Our first objective is first to grow that annually by that 9%. We are going to grow that by reorganizing our business approach. Our business model is changing. We want to be a profit-centered organization. As you are aware, we have been rated or categorized as a commercial state enterprise with strategic function. We then are going to look at issues of human resource.
Yes.
And that is where probably I would need them to come in and tell you, I've been in the post for, this is my 29th year. And I will tell you that all those guys we have around, I know quite a good number of them by name. And when that happens, because these are people I have interacted with all this time, and the new ones who come in, find me, and find the others together with me, and they get to know us, and we work together. So my style first is that I recognize the importance of the human resource, and that's why we have worked to create harmony, industrial harmony first, and a very good working relations with the union that our staff are members, so that we don't have disturbance like we had not long ago. Number two, I have made it open for staff to suggest how we can improve the post office. And they have done tremendously well in that area because I've opened channels of communication to allow them to feed us back. And as we also tell them what we are thinking from the headquarters. We have also the issue of leveraging ICT for doing our business. That is one objective that is very key to us to be able to deliver the 20 billion that I talked about.
And of course also you've brought in the enterprise resource planning.
We now have brought in the enterprise resource planning. In fact, they are on the ground now, and we expect that by the end of this year, December 2014,
yes,
as much as possible, we will be in every post office in an automated environment as we serve our customers. We think that will improve the processes, that will clear certain unclear areas right now. We don't know whether all the money that we collect is actually coming to the corporation. We don't know. We want to ensure that we now know that all the money that we collect stays
in the corporation.
In the corporation.
Dr. Kinara.
Yeah.
I thank you so very much. We know we can talk hours on end.
Hours and hours.
Yeah, but I really appreciate your insight and telling us more about the postal services and how we need that, and of course the way you've also you're transitioning also to the financial services, which also is within your remit. We thank you so very much. And of course, knowing your leadership style, and nice meeting you. My mail is coming.
Karibu. I'm waiting for it.
Posta Kenya, touching lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we've been speaking to the Postmaster General, Posta Kenya, touching lives, and of course giving us a brief about Posta and what strategic plan he has for Posta, taking it to the next level and what they've managed to come up with, especially within the ICT sector with the enterprise resource planning, and of course getting to know him more better and how he's managing to lead the corporation with his leadership style. Right, we take a short break right now. Don't go away. Much more coming up on the other side of the break.